the village of Hamlet and the surrounding area are rightfully called Greyhawk's starting zone, but I wanted to talk about other places that might also fill that bill. Today on Greyhawk Grognard. So I love the Village of Hommlet, and I love the Temple of Elemental Evil. I have been talking about it for years, and digging deeply into the lore and so forth. But recently, it seems like there's a bit of a glut in the fan community surrounding this area. When I was on a live stream recently with the DM and friends, I kind of pointed this out in my usual gentle and academic style. I will predict people will continue just cranking out endless details about Hamlet and the Moat House and the temple and the Crown Hills. Just stop. I'm begging you. Pick another place. Find another place in Greyhawk to write about. I'm begging you. You hear me? I am begging you.
Yeah. There's so much more to Orth that that's pretty.
Can we go outside of those 4 hexes on the map behind me, please?
There's
actually one hex,
down in
right?
Highport.
2 hexes.
Believe me when I tell you. Yeah.
For the love of God!
Right.
I
see a short. I see a short coming.
That's getting clipped.
As you can see, I have a lot of fun on live streams, so please do check it out when I do a live stream. I'll have a link to that one below. But that got me thinking. I can rail about people overdoing Hamlet, but what would be some alternatives to Hamlet? And I wanted to just go through a couple of them with you, and let's see what we come up with. So the first one I think of is probably the most obvious, and that is Lendor Isle. There are several published adventures from TSR and Wizards of the Coast that go through different adventures, and there's different towns and villages and stuff. There's also some fascinating expansion material that you can get on dragonsfoot.org and the Len Lakofka archive, where they've really taken some of the stuff and run with it. The stuff on Dragon's Foot was done with Len when Len was still around. It's got another module called Devil Spawn, and there's a whole Lendor Isle campaign guide. It's really fascinating stuff, and it fits the bill perfectly, right? Because you've got some little villages and towns, you've got a couple of dungeons scattered across here and there, and some plots going on and stuff. So it's really perfect. And the best part is these first couple of modules that were published. Secret of Bone Hill is for levels 2 to 4, and Assassin's Knot is for levels 2 to 5. So it's made the published stuff is really made for lower level characters, and you can get that grounding in there. And then you can obviously you could do a whole campaign there, lended, and if you wanted to, you could take ship and go into the mainland of the Flyness. So that's my first one, and it's probably the most accessible, because there is so much written for it. We've got these 3 modules. We've got the two things on Dragon's Foot, and there's other stuff that the archive is doing. So do think about this when you're thinking about a new campaign. If you want something that has quite a bit of already written support that you can kind of use as a framework for your own campaign. Next up is one that might not sound so obvious at first for a low-level starting area, but it really should, because it was the low-level starting area back in the day. This is the city of Greyhawk, and it's a box set. You can probably get it in PDF form on drive-through, and I'm sure you can get it on eBay or whatever if you want the full box set effect. But when I think of the city of Greyhawk, normally the first thing that comes to mind is, it's kind of a high level thing, but it doesn't have to be. Cities don't have to be high level. They can be set up just like dungeons, where there are lower level areas and then medium level areas and then higher level areas, and you just have to know, you have to be wise enough as a player, not necessarily as a character, but as a player, to not stray out of your comfort zone when it comes to the difficulty of the area of the city that you're in. And the city of Greyhawk is big enough that you could really do that. So you could have, if you started the players out in, say, the slum quarter, or something like that. They're going to be fighting some street toughs and some gangs and stuff. And then maybe they'll graduate to the thieves' quarter, and maybe then they'll go up to the strip and so forth. So there's ways to really manage a city campaign like this, where you can zone it out like dungeons, and have a really amazing time. This would be great if you wanted to have a really high role playing game, because you could get into politics with the oligarchs of the city and the different guilds and the temples and so forth. There's all kinds of ways you could make that work. And if you do want the dungeon experience, you've got Castle Greyhawk right there. And that's obviously been published in a couple of different formats. You could use the Greyhawk Ruins. You could use My Castle Mad Archmage. You could use um, Castle Zagig from Troll Lord Games. There's a bunch of options that you could use for that. Now, when it comes to the actual city itself, I like to jazz it up with urban things from other cities. So I have a lot of the old TSR Lunkmar stuff for the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and those modules and so forth. They fit right into the city of Greyhawk. You could do the same thing with from Troll Lords. They did the city of Yigsburg, the town of Yigsburg, and they're republishing all that stuff. So all that stuff would fit in pretty well here. You might have to do a little tinkering around the edges here or there, but if you're looking for really great urban adventuring, this is the place to do it. And it doesn't have to be high level. You can do a low level starter campaign in here. And as the characters get higher up in level, then you can let them go outside of the city, not just to Castle Greyhawk, as we mentioned, but there's all kinds of stuff immediately around the city. It was designed that way. The terrain is designed to be varied, and allow for all kinds of different adventuring. So you've got hills right there. You've got swamps right there. You've got forests right there. You've got a desert not too far away. You've got other towns and cities that you can interact with. So there's a lot of potential there. So don't discount the city of Greyhawk just because cities are supposed to be a little higher level. They don't have to be. And a city as big as Greyhawk, you can have a lower level area, especially one which has districts, and one part of the city is literally walled off from the rest. Old City is literally walled off. And speaking of which, if you want to get a little flavor of what you can do with that, you can also use the rogue books. These two especially take place in the city. There's others that also take place in the city and the surroundings. So there's plenty of stuff that you could use to really infuse a City of Greyhawk starting game with a ton of flavor. So that's probably my dark horse recommendation right there. The City of Greyhawk as a low level starting area. Hi everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and now back to the show. Now, another one I'm going to pick up is one that is a beloved one by a lot of people, and that is Cult of the Reptile God. This is set in right on the edge of the Rushmoors, which on the map is right here. So you're right on the edge of the kingdom of Kaoland. You've got this vast, huge swamp adjacent to the village. You've got a great starting adventure with the actual cult of the Reptile God, and then you could just stay in Orlane. Now, Orlane is a small village, right? It's really, really tiny, but then again, so is Hommlet, and you can do a gazillion things with Hommlet. It's got the requisite inn. That's called the Golden something or other. And it's got a starting adventure for you to get your feet wet and get grounded in the village itself. But then once you've done that, there's tons of stuff you could do in the Rushmoors. You've got this huge expanse of swampland right there that you can explore, and there's going to be humanoid bands in there. There's going to be monsters. There could be ruins in there. But once you get done, puttering around in the swamp, you've got a pretty big towns not too far away where you could get supplies and maybe get more information. You could also go across the river into I believe the Stark Mounds are right there. Uh, and there's the Dim Forest and the Oitwood within easy distance of there. The others could be other villages and so forth, but you could still use Orlane as that center point where that's your base of operations, and you stay out there at least until you get to level 4 or 5 or whatever. Then you can move on to greener horizons, greener pastures. So, as a starting area goes, is a really great one because it has that geographic diversity around it. It comes with a great starter adventure built into it, and it's got an easy area for follow-on adventures when you're talking about the Rushmores. So that's my third recommendation right there, is Against the Cult of the Reptile God as a great starter set. You could even do a follow-up. Maybe there's something going on behind the cult than we see in there. You could take that idea and run with it. It's always in Greyhawk. Remember, it's always peeling back the onion. There's not just one villain. There's always a villain behind the villain, behind the villain, behind the villain. So you could really take that concept here. I don't want to spoiler it for you, but those of you who are familiar with the module can have a couple of ideas what could be behind the cult. So anyway, that's my third recommendation, Against the Cult of the Reptile God. Now, there's two obvious ones that I just want to get out of the way because people will haunt my comments if I don't mention them. Obviously, Saltmarsh and the whole Saltmarsh series, which they've revived for 5th edition. And that is too obvious, really, to go into depth on. Same with Keep on the Borderlands. Keep on the Borderlands was originally a generic module, and then it was retconned into Greyhawk, and then they did a return to the Keep on the Borderlands and so forth to really cement it in there. Those two are just they're too obvious. I'm not gonna, I don't want to go into those. You already know about them, and much has been said about both. But I do want to just raise the idea of just doing it yourself as well. Pick any place on the map, just about. Especially if it's kind of an out-of-the-way place. You don't want it too close to a big city. You want to have a little geographic diversity there. And all you really need is a village with an inn and a starter dungeon. And then maybe you want to have another dungeon behind that dungeon, or another plot behind the main plot that's going on in the town. That's what I did with my series of modules. I did the Hamlet of Village. It was a pretty obvious pastiche. And then I did 2 follow-up things. They were set right in here, right in this area here in the Vespe Forest, and it's close to the town of High Folk, but not too close. And you have that geographic diversity. You've got the mountains, you've got the hills, you've got the plains, you've got the forest. So it's all right there. So you could just pick just about any spot on the thing, and that's what you need. You need just a little village, and it's probably the best thing, and I've talked about this in how to start a campaign videos before, but it's probably best if they don't come from that village, because if they came from that village, they would have too much information about the people who live there and what's going on. So it's much better if they're coming from a village, maybe 10 or 20 miles away, and then just to see, because they heard that there was something going on, and then they're in the village. They get to meet the people in the village. There's an inn for them to stay at, and this becomes their home base. And then there's an obvious close by dungeon that they can go to, and then there are other things which may or may not be related to that first dungeon. You could have even 3 completely separate plot things going on, and they don't even have to be plots. They could just be exploratory threads. Like 100 years ago, there was an evil cult, and they had a temple over here, and they had a shrine over here, and they did something over here. But also, there was the ruins of the border castle that was built by the evil baron, and he's over here, and his son now lives in his grandson now lives in the manor here, and he wants there's all kinds of things you could do with multiple axes of adventure. It doesn't always have to be all about the same thing at once. If you have that diversity of different things, they don't all have to tie together, and it kind of makes things more realistic and lived in. So. Anyway, so there's my 3 recommendations, plus my admonition to do it your own self. Just to give you some ideas for things to do other than starting off in Hamlet yet again. So anyway, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Let me know about what you think are great starting areas in the world of Greyhawk. What have you done when you've launched a new campaign? Have you taken it in some out-of-the-way place that doesn't get a lot of love from the printed modules? I'd love to hear about it. Please do let me know in the comments. Hope you're all having a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will talk to you all later. Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.